Good afternoon, everybody. Apologies, I'm slightly late. I'm not liking the new Facebook setup. I don't know about anybody else. It's confused me a little bit, and the live boxes weren't where I expected them to be. So apologies, I'm a minute or two late. I'm also evicted from my house at the moment because my husband is doing some DIY and has managed to cut off our electricity. Great. So I'm working from a community room at the moment, which is great, but there's no milk, so I can't have a coffee. So let's crack on. I've got to finish dead on 1:30 as we have a cabinet briefing this afternoon. So please do put your questions in. Where shall we start? Let's see what we've got coming in. So, can anybody else see questions? I can see lots of people watching, but I can't see any questions. I'm just checking on my phone to see if there's anything on there. I've got one like. Okay, that means somebody can communicate with me. So let's start by talking. Well done, Mr. Slade. Yes, thank you, Mr. Slade. Not very happy with Mr. Slade at the moment, who's also done the DIY without putting anything over to protect my carpets. Can you have an update on people being moved out of B&B? Not sure specifically what you're talking about, Louise. The people we have in temporary housing at the moment under the COVID regulations, their contracts end at the end of September, and we have new placements coming in place for most of them. We've been successful in getting some joint funding with partners to purchase some new properties for those people moving on from rough sleeping, which is really good news, but we'll have to purchase those over the winter. It will take a few months for that to go live. You may have seen that last week we had a visit from the Minister for Rough Sleeping and Homelessness, who praised the council for the work that they've done around homelessness. So that is good news. You should have seen a press release on that last week. Christine has asked about new housing policy. Not quite sure what you're referring to. In what way new housing policy, Christine? You might want to follow up with what do you mean by new housing policy. The new housing allocations policy is going through a period of consultation to harmonise the way that we allocate housing across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole. At the moment it's done quite differently, and restrictions and regulations and sanctions and prioritisation is being harmonised, because currently the amount of time you have to live locally is different in different places, which isn't appropriate. Leslie says she sent me an email with photos about grass verges. Leslie, unless you've sent it the last few minutes, I don't see anything in my personal email box. That sort of thing really needs to go to your ward councillor. Strategic things should come to the leader, but things that are going on in your own ward, probably best to send to your ward councillor, which I think is Little Down and Iford, so would be Lawrence or Bobby. When's the second lockdown coming? I wouldn't know, Lisa. I hope we don't have a second lockdown. We've done incredibly well in Dorset. We've been very fortunate. People have complied really well. We have one of the lowest numbers of cases and deaths of anywhere in the country. That continues to be the case. I don't know why you're referencing roads being closed off. There are a number of pinch points that we're dealing with to help people not have to use their car and to encourage people onto bikes and walking. That's completely irrelevant to a second lockdown. The funding for that has come from government to encourage people not to get back in their car and not, if they're not comfortable using public transport, to actually try local journeys in a different way. Yes, Louise, ongoing rehab will carry on in the same way as it does at the moment. When will Boundary Road... Oh, Dana, I know the roadworks are hell for you. Dana lives in Talbot Village, and the Boundary Road works are going to be a problem for a long time. I do have an update on the changes to the Boundary Road work. It's not really feasible for me to read out all of the changes that we have, but I can tell you that the next phase starts today, the 2nd of September. Phase 1 of the works is complete, slightly ahead of schedule. Phase 2 will begin Tuesday, which is yesterday. It says the next phase starts on the 2nd of September, but it then also says Tuesday, which suggests that's the 8th. Work is moving to the south side of the roundabout, so Boundary Road will reopen to northbound traffic heading towards Ensbury Park, will remain closed at Victoria Park Road for southbound traffic. Traffic from Talbot Avenue can continue to turn left onto Gillett Road. I'm not going to read it all out, but you can actually get an update on this via the website, and I'm hoping our comms team will put the link up for you. Obviously, the objectives of the scheme is to make pedestrian and cycle facilities better at that location and to create better transport links across the whole area. We do expect the works to last for 12 weeks on this phase. So hopefully that gives you some idea of where it's happening. Allocations policy. So Christina, I've covered the allocations policy. Have seen the new signs at sandbanks for no fires. Is there a fine for people having fires? Unfortunately, unless we actually put through a policy involving a bylaw, then we can't fine people without a bylaw. I have already explained most weeks that over the winter we're going to be looking at our beach management policies. So all of those changes will take place over the winter. Getting bylaws in place during the season is not appropriate. We are looking at different ways we can have, but you know, most people do comply with the no fires. And actually, if there's a fine, then we've also got to have more staff available. I've been away last week and I've been pleasantly surprised in other parts of the country. I haven't seen signs, but I also haven't seen litter and I haven't seen bad behaviour. So I think we are very unlucky with the people we have. Having a load of signs doesn't necessarily solve the problem, but also, you know, people should be behaving more appropriately. The larger green bins for Bournemouth, will residents have the option to keep the smaller one if the large one isn't needed? You can keep it. You won't be charged any less though. The charging strategy is to harmonise. I've personally kept a smaller black bin in Poole when they were increased in size in Poole a few years back. I chose to keep a small one. It won't save you any money, but obviously it will save the council money. But obviously we are removing the ability to have side waste in Bournemouth, which might mean people want a bit more space. Okay. Why is it okay for people to take drugs in main car parks? It isn't okay. If you see drug taking, that is a criminal offence, and I suggest you dial 999 if you see a crime in progress. If there's somebody vulnerable taking drugs, that is a risk of harm, so you should call 999. If you don't believe there's any serious harm to be taken, then you need to call 101. It's a criminal offence, it should be reported. The Echo is reporting cold cases are going up. Well, cold cases always go up in the autumn, I would have thought, but colds and COVID are very different, so I don't know if it's a spelling error, but if you look on the Public Health Dorset page, you will see that the numbers of cases in Dorset remain low, remain lower than almost anywhere else, and although they went up a little bit a couple of weeks ago, they are into single figures again, I think, this week. Any news on a cycle path along the prom? No. There's no plans to separate the prom. Think about this. We have 3,000 beach huts. 3,000. If we actually separate the prom into a walking lane and a cycling lane, everybody coming onto the beach has got to cross that cycle lane. Can you imagine those people who choose to go faster than they should, having their own dedicated cycle lane and people trying to cross, not just from car parks, not just from kiosks, but also from 3,000 beach huts. So that is basically where you will probably see, no, it's not practical unless we actually move the beach huts forward and put a cycle lane behind the beach huts, but that again financially is not appropriate. We've got to learn to work together. Cyclists have got to learn to slow down. Pedestrians need to understand that cycling is a legitimate means of transport, that the promenade is a legitimate route, and that we all need to actually consider each other. I would ask, if you ride a bike, please have a bell. If you're walking, please be mindful that there will be bikes around, in the same way as there will also be refuse lorries using that. There will also be vans. There will also be the land train most of the year. And in some areas, people can access the promenade with their car when they're accessing their beach hut. So it isn't an exclusive pedestrian-only space. It's not going to be an exclusive pedestrian-only space. Therefore, you need to learn to live together. Lisa's asked, my local council is looking into it. Is the council arranging separate school buses for each school? There is additional funding for additional school buses. If your local councillor is looking into it, then you need to let your local councillor come back to you. I don't have the answer on your particular route. There are lots of schools that need to share buses, so there is work going on to make it as safe as possible to keep people in bubbles. Children are required, if they're over 11, which applies to some of the middle school children, to wear a mask on school buses as well as on public buses. And it's important that we all do wear those masks. They really are not a major infringement of your civil rights, as some people seem to think they are. They're just a way of keeping everybody safe. How long is the COVID testing centre going to be there for? I believe we originally said we could stay there till October. I think that may now be staying over the winter, and we're happy for it to stay there for as long as it is needed. There have been some issues in the last couple of weeks regarding capacity. That's nothing to do with the council. That is a centrally run contract. We know that home testing kits and some of the technology around booking a test at your local site has been difficult. So they did ask last week that people turn up when they need to for a test rather than waiting for an appointment, because some places weren't saying there were appointments available. There is space. Okay. Right. Are BCP leading by example and getting their staff back to the workplace? It's not about leading, for example, Joanna. It's about doing what's right for people and doing what's right for the business. As a council, we're transforming and we will be reducing our office capacity. We've already made a commitment to do that. It isn't necessarily right to put everyone back in the town centres. Ultimately, more people driving into the office means more people polluting the atmosphere, driving their cars, sitting in traffic, wasting money, wasting time. I don't think it's about leading by example at all. I think that's a totally inappropriate comment to make. It's about doing what's right for the organisation and doing what's right for the individuals. If you can work properly from home, you should work properly from home. And if companies find that they can save money, if the council can save money, that money is your money. If we can have smaller units and we can have more money being spent on frontline services, that's a good thing. And that's the same with every organisation. I think we have to accept town centres are going to change and there won't be a need for some of those businesses in the town centres. In the same way as there's businesses that we don't need that we used 20 years ago, 30 years ago and so on. I think that's just a case of we have to learn to change. There's plenty of empty shops that could be taken advantage if more space is required to take social distancing. We have plenty of space as a council. I'm sure that, the laws have changed as of yesterday around permitted development. People can convert shops into offices, offices into shops, into hairdressers, into retail, into domestic. Those rules have been relaxed. And you will see the town centres changing, and we need to see more people living in town centres so that they don't need to commute in every day, and you'll then see different shops emerging as they service local residents. Grass verges along the spur road. Well, there is general maintenance taking place, Jackie. We are under enormous pressure. We have had 3 months of catch up to do. The spur road outside, if you look on the outer part of the spur road, that has to be done in conjunction with Dorset Council and has to be booked in overnight for the weeds being removed and the litter and things. That's not safe for our staff. We have to close off lanes, and that can't be done during the summer season. That's all booked in, I believe, for October. There's litter. If you see litter, pick it up. We've got plenty of people picking litter. We've got plenty of bins being emptied. But actually, our residents are buying more takeaway food. They are they're not using reusable cups. They are eating out. As a result, our bins are overflowing, and we still have the same number of bin men and the same number of lorries that we had before COVID. They're working as hard as they can, but you can't force people to do overtime to empty the bins more often. If there is litter and the bins are full, please take the rubbish home with you. Why is the new Sandbanks restaurant on Muddyford so big? It's slightly bigger, Michelle. You obviously don't approve of it. It's going through the planning process. If it's appropriate for planning, then it will pass. If it's not appropriate for planning, then it won't pass. At the end of the day, we have a responsibility to replace a service there, and you need more space now than you did when that was first built because of fire regulations The height is there to hide the extraction above the ceiling rather than having extraction units on the roof, which most people would agree looks ugly. That means a slightly higher roof line, but there is a public consultation going on. If you would like to contribute, please contribute to the public consultation. That's what it's for. We are looking at the financial viability of it post-COVID, and it will come back to Cabinet in November with that revised financial report, having gone through planning process and having looked at the public consultation. Okay, do we know if the Lighthouse Theatre is safe and staying? Louise, there's no reason to believe it isn't. I know they've been successful in getting funding through government. There's a new bid that's gone in for the Cultural Recovery Grant for the Lighthouse and also for BH Live. So they will be looking to see what they can do there. But I know the BSO have now started performing again. They're hoping to have some limited audience performances soon, and I hope that their future is safe and sound. There's been a private bus parked on Boscombe Overcliff for 2 weeks. Will it be moved? Sue, you need to contact your ward councillor if you can, or report it online. If we don't know about it, then we can't do much about it, but you have ward councillors. If it's Boscombe, then George Farquhar has already put his email details on, so I'm sure he'll pick that up for you. The Echo are saying COVID cases are increasing. Look at Dorset's Public Health for your information. Of course the Echo are saying COVID cases are increasing. It's on the news every day. But if you look at what's being said, the instances of hospital admissions is very low. Children are seen as low spreaders. I don't know what to say, Kelly. You clearly don't agree with the fact that we've got to get back to some sort of normality. Okay? You can believe what the Echo says, or you can believe what Public Health Dorset says. The number of actual cases in the BCP area this week is something like 9 or 10. The week before it was about 15, it was about 12, it's been about 10, it's been about between 10 and 20 for the last 5 or 6 weeks. The cases are going to increase. Fact, we're going to have more cases as we go into the autumn. Nobody disagrees with that. We could keep the children off school, but I don't know if anything like me, I want my children to have an education, and I'm quite happy for them to wear a mask if that's what it takes, so they get their education. I've already had 2 children who've had exam results that they didn't deserve, they've had stress they didn't deserve, and I've got 2 more children who are being denied an education. I want them to have an education, I want all of your children to have an education too. And if the professionals say it's safe for our children to be at school, then they should be at school. Okay, Ian's asked a second time about drug taking. Ian, you need to report to the police. Drug taking is a criminal offence. Okay, Christy's got a problem with a cyclist cycling through the Dolphin Centre. Look, people speed illegally, people take drugs illegally, people play loud music, people cycle where they shouldn't. That's not the council's responsibility, okay? Ultimately, we have a responsibility living in a society to work within the rules that are set. It's not reasonable to blame the council for every individual who doesn't comply with those rules. It's about whether the systems are set up in place to make sure that those rules can be complied with, and that whether the money that's being spent by the council is being spent appropriately. An individual riding through the Dolphin Centre is just an idiot. We can't account for idiots. Okay, Joanna wants to know who to contact regarding a Re-Energiser Back to Work event. Our Economic Development Department, Joanna, would be the best people to speak to for that. Okay. It's common in car parks. Yes, well, if it's common in car parks, you need to report drug taking to the police. I'm not going to repeat it again. When will bushes and grass be cut in communal gardens? The gardening in communal gardens started again towards the end of July. Obviously, there's a backlog. It is being done. I'm afraid you're just going to have to speak directly to your to the people that look after your particular block The Kinston Hub is now open again, should be able to answer specific questions, but everything is on a rota to be cut and to get things back under control. But bear in mind that work was suspended and staff were actually transferred over to other roles. Mobile home parked in Upper Road in Park, so not MOT taxed or insured. The person living in it's been leaving his human waste over the fence. Oh, Gary, we had something similar in Broadstone until very recently, where it was taxed and insured, but unfortunately the individual was dealing with his human waste in a similar way. Can you contact your local ward councillors? They'd be happy to help. But if a vehicle isn't MOT taxed or insured, you can report it to the council. If you go on the government.uk website, it'll link you into the right place. At the moment, the council aren't allowed to move vehicles. So if you have done that already, we're waiting for the DVLA to grant consent to move vehicles. But if there is an issue with human waste, etc., then we can get our antisocial behaviour team or the environment team to get out there. So Upper Road Parks, and I'm not sure which ward that is, whether it's Newtown and Heatherlands or whether it's Parkstone ward, but your ward councillor's details are online. But as I say, you can always also report to environment@bcpcouncil.gov.uk. That email address is checked every day. Okay, are there any plans for a cycle lane alongside the train line across Hulls Bay? Ish. The answer to that is there is a significant plan under the TCF, Transforming Cities Fund, to link up Wareham and the whole of Hulls Bay. It is technically quite difficult. I believe that particular part of the land is quite difficult in terms of its ownership and access. But the TCF programme, which we won £80 million for quite recently, does include a link up and a continuation of pedestrian access right the way down through the Cordite area. So we are hopeful that we can do something about that, but it's quite a tricky location. But I agree with you, it'd be great to link up across there. Obviously, you can get around the whole of Hulls Bay already using the inner Hulls Bay, but you can't get across at Rockley, which I think where you're referring to. What's the best way for a first-time buyer to get a mortgage around here? I probably would say shared ownership. I speak as a former mortgage advisor. Prices are incredibly high at the moment, but shared ownership does give people a really easy way to get on. You do need to make sure you've got sufficient income. That is obviously a factor, but there are plenty of properties being built, probably mostly flats, but there are more houses coming. There's a lot of development going on in some parts of the area, and including Winter Gardens. Hulls Bay will start development within a couple of years. There's a lot happening, but I agree there's a lot of retirement and mobile homes which are restricted in who can actually live in them. Okay, somebody's calling me hair flick. I don't care what you call me, to be honest. I get called worse at home sometimes. What's going on about further consultation about the traffic on the Southbourne Overcliff? Cars are going too fast. Well, we would have been able to slow them down if we hadn't had misleading information being shared and had to shelve our Boscombe and Southbourne Overcliff scheme. At the moment, there isn't a scheme that is going ahead under the Emergency Active Travel Scheme. We are hopeful that if we are successful in getting the full allocation under Tranche 2, that we may be able to bring a more substantive scheme forward for Southbourne and Boscombe in Tranche 2. But at the moment, we haven't yet heard how much we've been allocated. Okay, brilliant, intelligent. Oh, thank you. Okay, any serious discussions progressing regarding a radical rapid transport system? Yes, we keep talking about trackless trains. Those conversations are happening. It is incredibly difficult to get the space to do it, but it is something that I think cross-party is something that is supported, but it would require multiple millions of investment from outside, and at the moment that's not something we've been able to prioritise, but we do want to progress that. Our bus network isn't fit for purpose. We do need to find a way to get our two bus companies to integrate their ticketing systems between them. We do have areas that don't have a bus network, and we do need to find ways of getting new developers to fund experimental bus routes. It is very difficult for the bus companies at the moment to fund those trial bus routes, but we've got to try. Okay, why are road closures happening without any public consultations? I'm going to finish on this because I've got to finish shortly. Just to say that there is public consultation with these road closures. They're not road closures either. They are emergency active travel schemes which have been designed by government to allow for live consultation. What that means is that we accumulated about 1,000 ideas from local people using Widen My Path and email, and I advertised it on here, and I got loads of great ideas. The officers then ranked those schemes. Around 600 of those schemes were seen as potentially viable and ranked. And what then happened is they were scored against accidents, against schools, against other factors which the council needs to look at when they're making decisions. What then happened was they designed some draft schemes. They shared the details of those schemes with the ward councillors. Some ward councillors engaged with the officers and with the portfolio holders and said, don't like this, can we change this, can we have a conversation about X, Y and Z? And those schemes have then gone forward to public notification for 7 days and a live 6-month consultation. So the ward councillors had the information. Some of them decided not to engage with us and decided instead to send out glossy leaflets saying we don't like this. Our request of you is that those schemes that are now live are open for public consultation for a period of 6 months. During that time, we're asking you to use the scheme and then tell us what you think. The reason that schemes never get off the ground is because people are afraid of change, and they will actually go, this is going to have this impact, it's going to push all the traffic down my road. Well, let's have a look. Let's see. If it pushes traffic down a road unfairly and wrongly, we can change it, we can move it, we can put signage in different places, encouraging people to act differently. You know, we've got to be intelligent about this and not just go, I don't want change. There's a route I take from Broadstone to the Civic Centre, which would normally involve me using one of the roads in Oakdale at Tatnam to cut across. I won't be able to do that anymore. That's fine. I have no problem with that because the people of Tatnam Road never asked to be used as a main road. So as long as the signage is right, back at Fleets Lane and back at Fleets Bridge, then people like me and people who are coming from Wimborne or Camford Heath or Creekmore or Hamworthy or wherever else will know that they can no longer get through that road, and they'll either take Holes Bay or they'll take Wimborne Road. The local issues we need to fix where roads get pushed down one, but we've got to actually do something about congestion. We are the fourth most congested place in the whole country, behind London, Edinburgh, one other place, I can't remember, I don't want to guess. You know, that's madness. I've been on holiday last week. I was in Norfolk, Derbyshire and Staffordshire, and I was shocked at how low the traffic levels were in those areas compared to where we are here. They're absolute madness. So we've got to do something about it. You know, lots of people could be cycling to school. Somebody's showing tears, I don't know why. Lots of people should be cycling or walking to school or to work. Lots of people are going to be working from home long term. And all of those things, you know, we don't need to get in our car for our children to get to school. If school is 0.75 miles away from home, then we should be encouraging our children to do it differently. There are absolutely reasons for some people to get in their cars. This is not anti-car. There are lots of people who have to use their car. But the whole point of this is your congestion will be lower because some of us won't be in our car, either because we're working from home or because we're actually giving it a try, getting to work by bike, sending our children to school by bike, setting up cycle trains or walking buses, and giving something else a go. Because in 10 years' time, when we are still congested and people are saying, why did the council not think about congestion? Well, at that point, we'll say we had a chance, but none of you wanted to take an extra half a mile on your journey or consider whether you needed to take it. You know, this is a national programme. It's disgusting to see some people who have actually attacked some of the planters, not just here but elsewhere. I've also seen cases where people have gone out and they've spilt oil on the roads to deliberately harm cyclists. That's completely outrageous. It's not okay to do that sort of thing. It's a legitimate consultation. We would never make anything permanent unless the consultation shows that it's been positive. And at the end of the day, these are temporary trial schemes. The wands, the planters, the bollards, the paint and the signs, they can all be removed almost straight away if things don't work. The reason that we're not engineering roads is because that's permanent and we're not doing anything permanent. So anyone that tells you we're not consulting is not telling the truth. Any councillor that says they didn't know about it is not telling you the truth. The consultation is live and will carry on being live throughout. But I would encourage you, give it a try before you decide it's a disaster. Please give it a try first, because otherwise nothing will ever change. So I need to leave now because I have to chair a meeting. So just finally to say, somebody asked whether the Christmas market is back. Yes, the Christmas market is back. I think I authorised a press release yesterday about the plans for Christmas. Plans for Christmas in Bournemouth are set. Paul and Christchurch we should announce shortly. There will be fewer, more socially distanced cabins. The bar will be back in the square, but socially distanced and single story, so we don't have the problems going up and down the stairs. But, you know, Arts by the Sea is the next big event. If you haven't already got your tickets, please, please, please get your tickets for Arts by the Sea. Got some really exciting stuff going on. I don't know if it's already sold out. It's a free event, but you do have to have a ticket for some of the events that are running the last week of September, first week of October. I will be back in a couple of weeks' time. But remember, your ward councillors and the Report It scheme are absolutely the way to go for your initial inquiries. I won't be able to come back on any queries at the moment now because I've got to go and chair this meeting, but I will do my best to come in with some of them later on. Thanks very much. Take care.